This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 1238 of Horse Tip Daily, your almost everyday morsel of helpful hints, useful facts, and practical techniques for horse folks. Brought to you today by Kentucky Performance Products. Greetings, horse people. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today's tip is an excerpt from the monthly Australian episode on Horses in the Morning. Co-host Fiona from Remote Coach joins Glenn for a quick and useful tip about breathing properly plays into riding better. And we'll get right to our tip after this from Kentucky Performance Products.
Her life was falling apart around her, but when she saw his sweet face and heard the low nicker, the pain eased. She stood in the stall for some time, running a brush over his sleek coat, down his powerful muscles and over his tight, cool tendons. He cocked his back leg, waiting patiently. She scratched his favorite spot and was rewarded with a crinkled smile and outstretched neck. The stress flowed from her body, and she knew with him in her life, she would make it through. This love story is brought to you by Endure Extra, providing high-fat calories, direct-fed microbials, and natural vitamin E to support optimal condition and performance. The horse that matters to you matters to Kentucky Performance Products. Call 859-873-2974 or visit kppusa.com to order today.
We're just going to have a little talk about breathing and why it's important when we ride, and in particular for nervous riders, non-nervous riders as well. I mean, we all kind of need to breathe, but certainly for nervous riders, it's super duper important.
This recording is one of a series of short and, more importantly, free audio downloads, giving you some tips around your riding position, riding confidence, and dressage test riding. Now, breathing is something we all need to do in order to survive. It's obviously done subconsciously, as we all have enough to do in our lives without having to remember to breathe every few seconds. But when our body and brain perceives that it's in some sort of distress or a threatened situation, what's the first thing you do? Hold your breath? Think of the last scary movie you watched. When something bad was about to happen, were you curled up on the couch holding a cushion and only inhaling? I know I usually am, and the movie doesn't even have to be very scary for me. I don't do the he's behind you type of suspense. My point is that when we're in a situation where we're a little worried, where we're not quite sure we're 100% in control, we may shut our breathing down. Now, of course, we need to breathe at some point, and our bodies have pretty clear ways of making us do that. But it's certainly not the slow, steady breaths that tell our brain and adrenal system that everything's okay. I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose. Fill up your lungs slowly and evenly from the bottom to the top. And when you feel like you can't fit any more breath in, take another little sip of air. Now you're going to breathe out, also through your nose. Slowly, let the air trickle out instead of exploding out. And when you feel there's no more air left in your lungs to push out, squeeze a little more out. Do that twice more. You may have found while you're doing this, your posture unconsciously becomes better to make more room in your lungs for that precious air. It's been shown that 3 deep breaths in and out send your brain the message that you're okay. It stops that pesky adrenaline from being fired around your body, which puts you into that fight or flight or shutdown mode. Okay, so why are we talking about breathing? I think everyone who's listening to this who's ever been a nervous rider will have worked it out by now. When you're in a situation with your horse where you're not feeling like you're in control, or you're feeling like something could go wrong, our breathing is nearly always affected. Your breathing can become shallow or rapid or may stop altogether, temporarily of course. Both of these things send our adrenal system into a panic mode. Now, if you've got a horse standing next to you or you're sitting on him, he may have just done something that caused that reaction. He's sensitive enough to note that you've gone into panic mode, and at this point you simply can't be his leader anymore. He's now got to step up to be the leader, and it's not something he's really keen on. Your breath and body language is telling him that there really is something to be scared of. His reaction to you doesn't make you feel any better, and we're off on the vicious circle. Sound familiar, anyone? It's easy for me to say, just do 3 big breaths in and out and the problem's fixed. It's not always easy to do, and I'm sure those of you who've been in this situation are nodding your heads going, yeah, you're not wrong, lady. So we need to be able to train ourselves or teach ourselves to be able to breathe deeply and regularly when we start to feel nervous or worried. And we also need to remember to move. There's a huge temptation to curl up into fetal position, and that's going to do you about as much good as not breathing in the long term. So when I say move, it may be as small as moving your little finger or wiggling your toes. It may be as big as flapping your arms about. As the adrenaline builds up in your body, it needs to have somewhere to go, otherwise it's just going to go round and around and around in your body with no outlet. When I get a bit nervous on a horse, I curl up my toes really tight. Who knows why? I've always done it. But that means that my legs are completely ineffective because that tension travels all the way up the back of my legs. Learn the cues that you know sets you off. Really, really think about the situations you find yourself nervous in and see if you can set yourself up with a bit of a plan around it. Have a favourite song, a poem, a speech, anything you can say or sing out loud. When you're talking or singing, you have to breathe. It might be a canter transition you're worried about. Deep breath, sing your song, wriggle your little finger or your toes or flap your arms, gently of course, and ask for canter. By knowing your trigger situations, you can also trick your brain a little by imagining them, breathing well through them and having a great outcome in your imagination. It's your imagination. Don't let yourself have a bad outcome in it. This can also help to short-circuit your initial reaction because you're tricking your brain a little, you're practicing it. So let's use canter transitions again as an example. As you're trotting around on a circle, imagine a super transition to canter. You're going to think through your preparation, your aids, the strike-off, 4 or 5 strides of great canter, and a soft transition back to trot. Because it's your imagination, it's going to be the sort of transition that will score a 10 on a dressage test, yes? Ride that imaginary transition as often as you have to, and then one day do it for real. Breathe, sing your song, apply your aids, and off you go. Most of us in daily life tend to breathe quite shallowly, so be kind to your body and take the opportunity to practice really filling up and emptying your lungs a few times a day. Those of you who've performed yoga, Tai Chi or Pilates would be familiar with performing movements or postures with the breath. This can really help your riding as well, particularly through transitions. I'd love to hear if you found your transitions better or if you found you were able to slow down that spurt of adrenaline using breath techniques. This is just a little snippet into one way or a few ways you might be able to help slow down that adrenal reaction you have. I'm more than happy to talk to you about other ways I could help, or you may be interested in some of my programs on the website. If you've enjoyed this snippet, please take a moment to have a look at the other audio downloads and programs I offer in the store. The website is www.remote-coach.com, and all downloads are priced under $10 Australian. There are audio downloads on your riding position, ideas for a daily ride, a great warm-up one, and many more. I do have a confidence series in the works at the moment also. If you've questions about the downloads or topics you'd like me to cover, please feel free to contact me. I'd love to hear from you. Happy riding.
Thank you for that. Now, what's this problem you have with me? What's going on?
Well, there you have it. If you are wondering why Glenn is in the doghouse with Fiona, head on over to horsesinthemorning.com and listen to episode 1353 for the answer. You can find links to today's guests as well as lots more tips at horsetipdaily.com. This podcast was made possible through the generous support of Kentucky Performance Products and listeners like you. Learn how you can help support Horse Radio Network programming and qualify for auditors-only perks by going to horsetipdaily.com and clicking on the Become an Auditor banner in the center of the page. This is Coach Jen, and I'll be back again soon with another tip. So until then, go ride your horse. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.